Hello everybody and welcome to the video. Today we're going to be going over my beginner's guide to refinement. Now before we start the video, I want to start off by giving you guys a table of contents in the sense of, we're going to be talking about the process of refinement, what it even is, where you can get it done. We're going to give a little bit of a PSA to just bring awareness to something, so in case you're a new player, this is something that you need to know. I'm not going to say it should be obvious, but just in case, I'm going to say it anyways. Um, then we'll get into refinement and the effects that it has on you as a player. I've got a couple examples that I can show you, and then on top of that, we're actually going to do a couple of battles to really show its effects. So you guys will get to actually see the difference, not just hear the difference. So with that being said, we can finally get into it. Now, for those wondering what refinement even is, refinement is the process of strengthening one's equipment to attain certain effects. For weapons, it can give you bonus attack for your thing for armors, shields, additional pieces of equipment. That'll give you like resistances, which we'll get into that later. But it gives you different effects for different types of equipments. As to where you can go and get your equipment refined, there are a few places that you can get it. The first place being the blacksmith in Sophia City, or in most cities. Most cities in game tend to have a blacksmith, but you'll always be able to just come to the blacksmith in Sophia City. This is Zaldo. You met him in the beginning of the game. Here, you'll enter his menu, and you'll see all this right here. Again, you'll go to the strengthen equipment, you click on refine, and you have to give him ore. He needs ore to strengthen it. On top of that, you do need to have the weapon that you want to refine equipped. So right here we have a wood sword. It is equipped, and then we click don't use because I don't really care. And then it'll show you everything that you're ever going to need to know. If he does succeed in refining pieces of equipment, it'll show you that it refines from +1 from where it is right here to +2. If he fails, it'll either lose all of its levels, or you don't gain anything, or it'll go to you'll lose 1 level. So right here you see the success chance is 100%. So we're gonna get this refined. This will cost you a little bit of spinna each and every time you do it, and the more you do it, the lower the chance becomes. So, of course, the first few times it's nothing, but as you can see here, the fee for each and every refine is 135 spinna. Can't believe I wasted spinna for that. But yeah, you can also make a character and have them refine it, and it's not going to be too difficult. You can get a level 1 character, get the smithing skill, which you'll see we have right here, the smith skill, and all you need to do is this. You can put literally 1 skill point in this. You can have a level 1 character with this skill, and you will be able to refine all of your equipment to +S, because there is a whole pity system and all that. But we will get into that later into the video. But again, you can refine it yourself. And again, you follow the same rules that you did with Zaldo. Equip the weapon that you want to refine. Sit here. I don't have it equipped anymore, but you would be able to refine it for free. So I would recommend you do that. There is another way you could refine equipment, and it's essentially just to get another player to do it. But this is where the PSA comes in. Toram tends to have a little bit of a problem. Most games do. It's not exclusive to Toram, but where some people will lie. They will not refine your equipment for you. They'll sell to you a service, and then they'll take your weapon, and then they'll sell it. They'll log off, they'll take it from you, and it's like, now not only do you have no refined equipment, but you don't even have equipment at all. Some people will. Now, there are ways to kind of mitigate this. Maybe you could do like a little bit of a trade. Hey, give me something so I know you're not going to run off with my thing because I'll have your thing. That type of deal. But typically there's no reason to ever do that. You could just make a level 1 character and refine it yourself. You just need to get the ores and all that. It's its own thing, but those are the areas in which you can refine your equipment. So let's talk about the process of refining equipment. As I mentioned earlier, you can do it yourself, and this is most likely what you're going to want to do. You do want to do this. This is the best route for you. You get to save. You kind of save spending. You can if you want to. It depends on how easy you want it to be. But you can go and refine your own equipment as long as you have ore. You can get ore from multiple places. The most common place that people will get it is from the Nemicos in the Ultimea sewers, because you can kill the Nemicos and they drop mithril ore, which is probably the best ore for you to use when refining your equipment. Don't bother getting the super high level equipment. But again, get the mithril ore. The weapon has to be equipped, and it has to be able to be refined. There are some weapons that can't be refined. There are things like the ninja scrolls, arrows, daggers. Those are the types. I don't think there's any more. But those cannot be refined. But everything else can. So magic devices, staffs, swords. You get the idea. Um, you could use refined tickets if you want, but the success rate is lower, especially if you're like level 1. But we don't really care about this because the more you refine equipment, depending on the ore, regardless if you succeed or fail, you can actually get something called pity. Um, and pity is a godsend. If I'm being honest, like I remember playing this game so many years ago, and there was no pity system, and refinement was an actual hell, if I could just say that. But now there's a pity system, and if you want to know how much pity a weapon has or any piece of equipment has that has been refined, you can go to whatever weapon and you can go all the way to the bottom and you'll see a point system. Um, this point system is important for knowing how much percentage of pity you're going to have. So apparently for every 150 points, it gives you 1% extra success. So of course, the longer you refine equipment, the more likely it is to succeed. And it doesn't disappear, right? So even by the time you start to get into the higher levels of refinement, like E, C, D, whatever, that percent chance will always be the same. So typically around this amount of points, it's like you're going to see that I think it'll be like 13-14% chance. Again, it's every 150 points. So at 1,500, it's 10%, right? So from there, yeah, about 12-13% for this, which 12-13% on plus B or plus A or plus S is going to be really good. So whenever you go to refine your equipment, just keep on trucking, just keep on going. You will eventually get plus S. So it's not too difficult. The only bad thing about refinement is that it could take forever, like most things. Because I'll put a list up on screen, but the ores that you use give you different amounts of points. Mithril ore, I believe it's 4 points. That's what what I remember. Again, it's going to be up on screen somewhere. And this is every single time. So getting to around 1,000, 2,000 points or something like that can take a long time. I mean, that one person got lucky. But obviously this one doesn't have anything. This one's 1,657, so I really barely got a little over 11%. This one, somebody did 1,800. Yep, this one I did the other day, 2,000. So you can see that it's like, imagine adding 4 points at a time to equipment. It takes a long time, but it's completely worth it, as you'll see when we get into the effects that this is going to have on us. So right here we have a level 61 halberd character that I made like half an hour before going to bed last night. He's going to be our guinea pig for the rest of the video. So get used to him, say hi, greet each other. Let's look at his stats real quick just to show you what he looks like. 243 points into the STR stat, 305 total attack so far. He does not have anything equipped and no avatar, so straight raw. Yeah, so we're going to use him as our little guinea pig. So let's start off with main weapon refinement. What is the purpose of it, you ask? Well, it's to give you bonus attack based on the weapon's original attack and refinement value. So there's actually an equation you can follow to find out how much bonus you're getting. The equation goes as such. The bonus percentage of the refinement, so at plus S, it'll be 225%. I'll put the chart up somewhere on screen for you to follow. And you'll do that times the weapon attack. So for example, if I was doing this, it'd be 7, and then plus the refinement level. So for refinement levels, I'll also put that up on screen, but I think it'll be on the same chart. And it is in increments of 1. It goes all the way up to 15. So obviously 1 through 9 will be numbers 1 through 9. Then you'll run into letters after getting past plus 9, and it'll be E, D, C, B, A, S. and that'll be 10 through 15. So, for example, if I were to have a weapon attack of 100 that is refined to plus S, the formula would look something like 225% times 100 plus 15, which would make a total of 240. So you would get 240 bonus attack on top of the original weapon, and everything's all sweet. So what we're going to do here is I have two weapons for us to look at. We have this one right here. It is a super high attack level. It's actually higher than this one. So this one has 898 attack. This one has 883 attack. But as you've probably been able to tell, this one is refined to plus S, while this one isn't. And again, to the untrained mind, you might think that the one with 898 total attack would give me more attack than the one with lower attack, which it gives me a good amount, 1,736. But you might be surprised to find out that when I equip the plus S refined whatever weapon with lower attack, that actually I have far more attack. And again, this is because of that weapon bonus. So we can actually do a little bit of the math here. So I'm actually pulling out a calculator. So 225% times, and we're going to grab the weapon, times 883 plus 15. I forgot to put percent. And that would give me 2001, right? And I believe you would add on like the 883 or whatever, but you can see that we're getting like, even just off the refinement value, the bonus, it's 2000. So that alone should get you to refine all of your main weapons. I mean, you should wait till you're further into the game in case you're a new player, because you don't want to spend all those resources refining terrible equipment. But if you can find yourself, even if it's a mob drop, like if you're like, for example, like a one-handed sword would be like a shotel, I think it would be. You can even refine that to plus S, and it would be a massive boost in your damage, at least in your attack stat. And you'll see that later on in the video when we do actually get into a couple boss fights against Flare Volg, that it does matter. But there you go. There's the whole refinement thing right there for the main weapon. So when it comes to refining your sub weapons, there is so much to get into, especially because it changes per build. Certain builds will change kind of the truth of things. So I'll give you a little bit of an example. Magic devices is going to be a type of sub weapon that you're going to be able to equip as a sub weapon. And at first, just alone, without having anything or knowing anything, you're going to notice that it's going to tell you that you're not gaining any effects from it. And that is the truth. You don't gain any effects from it. And that would include refining, as far as I'm aware. But if you were to obtain certain skill trees, that changes. Again, stuff like this, if we were to sit here and go through each and every single one of these things, it would take forever. I think they require their own videos. Like Sword Fu would require its own video. Especially one with magic devices as a sub weapon being its own video. That would require its own video. But just know for now, it doesn't have any effect unless you have like a skill tree like the from the Book of Magic Warrior. That one you would get effects from it. But other than that, you get stuff like Knuckles. Again, would require its own videos. But for the most part, all you need to know is that you don't need to refine it. Refining doesn't do anything. Any of the effects that you'll get from Knuckles as a sub weapon are are already obtainable before refinement, and it doesn't really change anything afterwards. But for sub weapons like one-handed swords, there is an effect that you can get from it. So if you're doing like a dual wielding build, it would be worthwhile to refine your one-handed sword sub weapon to plus S. The effect from this is that it will increase the damage of dual wielding skills, but only dual wielding skills. So it won't increase the damage of blade skills, but dual wielding skills will be increased. So that is an important note. But as for other sub weapons, arrows, daggers, ninjutsu scrolls, These things you cannot refine. The only other type of, I guess, weapon that is new that you can refine is shields. Shields are going to be new. These are going to be a sub weapon that you can equip. These are refinable. And when we talk about them, I'm going to kind of mishmash them with armors and additionals because they pretty much gain the same effects as they do. But other than that, I mean, everything's pretty much all the same. Moving on to shields, armors, and additionals, the reason I wanted to mishmash all of these into one section is because they all pretty much gain the same effects from refinement. What they gain from refinement is not bonus attack like main weapons, but resistances actually, which these are going to be a very important part of any build. You're going to need to do this if you want to enter like the late game content, like bosses and all that, because this will actually help you when it comes to taking damage. So the effects of refining any of these equipments, shields, armors, and additionals, these will add physical, magical, and fractional resistance every time you refine these. The ratio is pretty much 1 to 1. So for every one level of refinement, you gain 1% resistance. So, for example, a knight build where you have a shield, armor, and additionals equipped, you will gain 45% total resistance if everything has been refined completely. Because again, it's like 15 levels per weapon. Because again, refinement levels. We talked about this earlier in the video, but there are a total of 15 per weapon. S being 15. So if all of your equipment is plus S, you're getting 15 per equipment, 15, 30, 45, math, which is really good. This is really good. As for other builds, the resistance is changed based off of what you can equip. So for someone who uses like a staff build, in the beginning, you do want to actually get your hands on a shield because then you can add that bit of resistance, making you more tankier. And trust me, you're going to want to build your, make your mage a little bit more tankier because the aggro you're going to be pulling is going to be crazy. As the name would state, it is a stat that resists the corresponding damage. So physical resist will resist physical damage. Magical resist, magical damage, and fractional resist, fractional damage. Now, physical and magical, pretty self-explanatory. I mean, we all know what type of damage that is, but you're probably asking, what is fractional damage? What is that? Fractional damage is based on a fraction of the player's HP. Now, obviously, this is different per boss, per enemy, per skill, whatever. So, whatever fractional damage you might gain or get from someone, I don't know, maybe like Masked Warrior, I don't know if he has any fractional damage skills, would be different than something you're going to get from somebody else's. But obviously, fractional damage is going to be like a tank player's bane because you can have all the resistance against physical and magical damage you want, but if that boss is going to do 45% fractional damage, you can have 100k HP. That sucker is taking away 45k HP. It's going to take away a lot of damage. So having resistances to that is really good, especially in the late game where most bosses have fractional damage dealing skills. But resistances. Let's talk about resistances a little bit more because resistances, you shouldn't really look at it as like a resistance because you think of it like when I hear the word resistance, I think of like status ailments. But think of it more like damage reduction. See, for every 1% of resistance that you have, you actually gain 1% damage reduction for whatever resistance you have. So for that knight build that I mentioned earlier with the 45% resistance, in reality, off of refinement alone, he has 45% damage reduction from physical, magical, and fractional damage, which is obviously great when you think about it. I mean, 45% damage reduction. When it comes to stat calculations and all that stuff, like, oh my god, we're dipping into a different type of video that should be done. But it is the second step in the damage calculation, as far as I'm able to tell, because defense and magical defense are taken into account first, and then whatever remaining damage from that calculation is left, the resistances will take a hold of. But again, resistances are good for everybody. Just that's all you need to know. But damage reduction. So for every 1% resistance, you get 1% damage reduction. That's what I just said, up to 50%. The reason I say up to 50% is because anything above 50% is reduced by half. So I'll give you an example. And this, by the way, continues in sequences of 50. So let's say you're that knight build, 45% resistance, you will get 45% damage reduction. But let's say you go a little bit above and beyond, and now you have 75% resistance. You won't have 75% damage reduction, you'll have 62.5% damage reduction. See, the first 50% is going to be 50%. But what about the remaining 25%? Remember, it's being halved. So half of 25% is going to be 12.5%. Add that to 50%, and that's 62.5. So this will continue on and on. So by the time you add another additional 50%, that will also be halved. And then on and then on and then on. And from what I'm able to tell, you cannot gain 100% resistance. That would be absolutely disgusting. Seeing as you would just not take any damage. You would just not take damage at that point. So at some point it does become kind of like useless in a sense, but not necessarily. It's dependent on your build, but you don't want to invest everything into resistances. Eventually you do want to invest into other stuff. But for the most part, resistances are awesome. So with that being said, we can actually get into the fun part of the video.
Okay, so earlier I mentioned that we were going to use this guy as a guinea pig, and that wasn't only to equip a couple weapons. We're actually going to use this guy in battle. So we're going to do a few battles. One with the basic equipment that is unrefined. So this adventure garb, again, has straight defense, no refinement level. Same thing with the halberd. Here are some buffs, just to help us a little bit, take a little bit of damage, have some MP for skills, and attack MP recovery, so we can keep this thing moving. But we're gonna be looking for a couple things. We're gonna look at the damage we're taking. We're gonna look at the damage we're dealing, both non crits and crits, and we're gonna look at skill damage. The main skill damage that we're gonna be using, the main skill that we're gonna be using, is Draconic Charge right here. So let's just get into it. We're not gonna waste any time. So we'll try to do like 2 battles without the refined equipment and just pay attention to the attacks. We're gonna let him hit us at all he wants. We just want to see stuff. So for basic attacks, it looks like we're hitting anywhere around 500 to 600 ish. We're missing a lot, obviously, but that's a given. As for the damage we're taking, the lowest we're seeing so far is 112, with the highest being 354. When we go to test the other equipment, we're gonna when we look at the armor, we're gonna want to see lower damage, but we'll talk about that in a little bit. As for crits, when we do happen to crit, we're critting for about 1,100, give or take a couple digits. But yeah. Oh, we just took 523 damage. No, we dealt that. Never mind. Yeah, okay. I was having to look really closely. Okay, I feel like that's more than perfect. Draconic Charge. Let's see what Draconic Charge does. So, 78,000 and 122,000. We'll do it one more time just to end it. By the way, we're going to let Draconic charge all the way. When a skill activates, it's going to when the boss does a skill and we're within the warning area, it's immediately going to activate for us, which is really good. So that second time we did it, it did 64,154 and then 117,078. So we're going to go in there. We're going to go in there and do one more battle. But from what we've been able to tell so far, our basic attacks tend to do anywhere around 550 to 650, give or take a little bit. When it crits, when our basic attacks crit, we're doing anywhere from 1,100, maybe sometimes a little bit lower than that, to upwards of 1,200, roughly. This one actually has 1,398, so never mind, it's almost up to 1,400. As for the physical damage we're taking, again, the lowest I've seen so far is 112. So Yeah, not the craziest damage, and we're dying, so we got to kill him. Please kill him. There we go. That was some pretty good damage. That was some pretty good damage. 126,000 and then 129,000. So not bad. But we could definitely do better. We're gonna equip the halberd that has less attack, but it is refined, and the armor that has the same amount of defense, but it's refined. Now, what is it that we're looking for? If what I've been telling you guys this video is true, what we're hoping to see is higher basic attack damage with non-crits, with crits, and for the damage we're taking, we're wanting to see less. So hopefully I have it somewhere up on screen, or I'll just flash it for a little bit, and then we'll flash it again later on. Whatever I decide to do in editing. We're looking to see lower damage. So our lowest form of damage, I believe, if I remember, was 112 basic attack damage from the boss to us. We're wanting to see lower than that. As for our basic attacks, we're going to want to see way more. And the skill damage, obviously, we'll want to see more. So, basic attacks do more. Our basic attacks did anywhere from like 550 upwards of, what was that, 800-ish, 700-ish? We're doing in the thousands. And our crits are doing far more. We're doing literally double the damage, if not dang near triple what we were doing in terms of physical damage. As for the damage we're taking, we've seen a new low. The lowest damage we've taken so far is 91 physical damage. You can see at the very top right here. Yeah, we're taking way less damage. And you got to think about something. When it comes to where you're at in the game, at first, this isn't going to really mean anything early on in the game. But the further you get into the game, especially when you start reaching chapters like 7, 8, 9, and so on and so forth, this will mean something. But 264,000 damage with Draconic Charge. And that just killed him, so we didn't even get another chance to really do anything. We did just level up just now, but I'm not going to allocate any points. We're just going to enter. But this is going to mean something. A lot of the late game bosses do so much damage, especially fractional damage, which again can be a nightmare for some people. But refining your armors and additionals are going to be a really big deal. I mean, we don't even have an additional equip, so we could be taking even less damage. But it's like, as you can see here, we're just doing so much damage. 184,000. And we only did one instance of that. We almost knocked out the boss from that. Let's try to do that again. I mean, I could have just stayed there. He would have done it immediately. Let's see. Yeah. But this really is going to help late game, especially for those bosses that have super high HP. I mean, they have super high HP. You can see here that with the unrefined equipment, we were barely hitting 130k. Did we hit anywhere above that before? I did a couple fights beforehand. That was refined, this one. So this one I think was unrefined. This 149, but I did that off camera. 149,000 is the highest that's ever occurred in all of this. And that was with unrefined equipment. But with refined equipment, we're easily hitting way above that normally, with most of our attacks being above 200k when it comes to using our skills. And that's with, again, just Draconic Charges. That's with no buffs like Warcry or anything like that. We do get the food buffs, but whatever. But from just the 4 or so fights that you've seen, when it comes to refining our main weapons, we're seeing so much more damage. We're seeing literally double to almost triple the damage in terms of basic attacks, whether they crit or not. And when it comes to the damage we're taking so much less. And again, this is Flare Volk. Like, this ain't nothing. When you get to areas like the Masked Warrior or Cerebrus, whenever you're doing like some leveling up guide things or whatever, or when you get to even like way late into the game bosses, you're gonna need this. It's not even it's convenient. You're gonna need this because the boss will hit you. And if even a basic attack gets you and you're relatively new to the game, refining your equipment can literally mean the difference between surviving and just getting knocked down. And I don't know about you guys, but let's see how many times have I been knocked down. How many times I've been defeated? Almost 300 times. So I'm tired of it. I don't know about you, but I'm tired of it. So refining is a must. Whatever equipment you can get your hands on, refine the absolute hell out of it. I'm telling you, you're going to want to do that, because when you do get your hands on some decent equipment, oh my god, it's going to be such a difference. We're going to look at a fight with this equipment. We should be looking much better. So you'll kind of get a taste. I mean, level 63 versus level 60. Is this 60? Yeah. Just one draconic charge. Let's see. Killed. Just killed. Look at that. Killed. Instantly. And that's without proration. Almost 200k each. With proration, we would have gotten more. We can get up to 300k with that. And I don't even have the proper buffs. I should have... I don't need a crit rate buff. Clearly. But, this is where I'm going to end it. The video is going to be already long enough. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you are watching this and you're like, hey, you forgot something or you got something wrong, leave it in the comment section and I will pin the comment, or, you know, whatever. Whatever. But yeah, if I forgot something, please leave it in the comments. And I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. I'll see you guys in the next one. Peace.